Well, good morning, or actually it might be afternoon when you're watching this. It's probably about 9:30 when I'm recording this on a Wednesday morning. Just following up on, first of all, on some of your self-introduction speeches. Thank you for doing those. I appreciate that. Getting to know you a little bit better. I thought you, in general, everybody did a great job. A couple of things to point out for your next round of speeches that we can learn from that experience. First of all, remember, I don't want you to start by saying, "Hi, my name is, and my topic is this." Go ahead and start right into the speech itself. Start with your opening story or example or illustration. That's a better way to grab our attention. So start that way, and then come back around if you need to tell us your name and your topic, then do that after the introduction. Remember, when we talked about introductions, we say, first of all, get their attention. Second, reveal your topic. So if I was going to talk about German Shepherds, I might tell where they came from and their background a little bit. Actually, first of all, I would start with talking about my shepherd, Bruno, who's usually here on the couch sleeping, but he's outside right now or in the hallway or something. Talk about that first, and then say, so today I want to talk to you about German Shepherds. A much better way to get into your speech. Attention first, and then reveal the topic. Let's see, was there anything else I wanted to mention on that? A couple of other things. First of all, make sure when you're presenting, you are standing up. I want you to stand. I mentioned that in one of the earlier videos or comments somewhere. Most of you did that. A few of you, I could tell you were sitting. Some of you, maybe you were standing. I thought you were sitting. But anyway, stand up. I'm standing now. So for the most part, stand. Okay, and then was there anything else? I think overall, timing was really good for everybody. I don't think there were any deductions for points on not being long enough or too long, so great job on that. Volume was good, camera work was good. Make sure you're doing your camera the long way and not this way. I've mentioned that before too. I don't want just this, I want this. And pretty much the same view, chest up, top of your head is not cut off and all that stuff. So make sure you check your camera view. Okay, so I think that's enough about that. Great job. I'm looking forward to seeing your informative speeches this week. And today I'm going to be talking to you actually about the next speech. We're actually on to that. We've already talked. I know I had a series of persuasive speech chapter 16 videos. I don't think they were that long each one. Maybe they were. I'm not remembering. But I have one more. And today we're talking about methods of persuasion. We talked about what persuasion is, what types of speeches there are, methods, and all that. But today we're talking about how do I actually persuade people, and there are going to be 4 topics. I think I'm going to break this into 2 parts, 2 videos, so let's get going on the first one. So, when I've done quite a bit of building projects over the years, quite a few things around my house. I put in the laminate flooring in this room. I've put in a lot of the tile work. Some other people have helped, but did tile flooring in the house. I painted everything at least twice. We've now been here in this house for over 22 years, so I've done that. I did my front lawn years ago. It's time to replace it out with something else, different type of lawn maybe. I have installed electrical. I have done plumbing, and you know what? When I was like 20 years old, I knew nothing how to do any of those things. The way I learned them is through friends of mine. I've been involved in several house building projects down in Tecate, Mexico. About 15 homes I've helped build, simple structures. And so I learned by watching and seeing what these other guys did, and then I went out and started doing the same things I learned from them. How to do electrical, how to do plumbing, those kinds of things. So I don't know, there's a lot I don't know, but I have learned a lot, and I've done a lot here in the house. And if you went in my garage, there are quite a few tools there, but there's 2 tools that I use more than probably any other. First of all is a hammer. I've had this hammer since the early 90s. It's a 16-ounce hammer, and when I first started using it, it's very heavy. But now I can swing this thing pretty good, and all that. So a hammer. And then second of all, what's called a Wonder Bar is this bar, a crowbar. You can use this for so many things. I've used it for knocking the laminate boards together on the floor, removing nails, prying things open, all sorts of things. So if I pick two, those would be the biggest two tools I would use in my toolbox. Well, today, as you can see illustrated here, I've got a toolbox here. We're going to put 4 tools in the toolbox. And here I have a hammer, a screwdriver, a handsaw, and a tape measure. If you can see that, they would all go in the toolbox. That's just for your entertainment. But here are the 4. We're going to talk about credibility, evidence, using reason and logic, and emotional appeal or emotional persuasion. So we're going to talk about those 4 today. So let's start by talking about credibility. Credibility, briefly stated, is where your audience trusts you as the speaker to bring good information, valid information, reliable information. They like you. You make a good presence. They trust you that what you're saying is accurate. So that's an ideal situation to have in your speeches, that you are seen as a credible person. You have credibility to your background. So, and we know from research that when people believe the speaker is more credible, they do a couple of things. First of all, they pay better attention, but then also they remember better what the person said. They have a better chance. So the question is, how can we establish credibility? And when we talk about credibility, 2 types of credibility, sub-points of it. First of all is competence. Are you a person that is doing a good job in presenting your speech? Do they watch you give that speech and say, he knows what he's doing? He is well prepared. He's practiced. He's ready to go. He's got a great PowerPoint. He knows he's clicking it correctly at the right time. He knows what he is doing. That's competence. The other part is character. That is, do they see you as a person, that you have a warmth to the audience? They even talk about that. Do you express that you desire a well-being for the audience? Am I saying that right? That you are seeking the audience's well-being. In other words, what you're presenting isn't just you saying, look at me talk and believe what I say, but instead I believe that by sharing what I have with you, you are going to be better off, that you have their best interest at heart. So competence and in your character are 2 kind of sub-points of what is credibility. The textbook also describes how credibility is a fluctuating commodity. In other words, it can change during your presentation. And they talk about 3 levels, and it can go up and down in any of these. First of all is initial credibility. When you walk up to the front to present your speech, what kind of initial credibility do you carry up with you? One of those is your background. Do you have the PhD, the master's degree, the bachelor's degree? Do you have tons of experience? So when you walk up and just say, my name is, and I've had these experiences, and this is my educational background, and this is where I've worked and taught and done these things, that carries weight with it, that initial credibility. And so some of us, I think I mentioned in here, if I glance at my notes, as people who are beginning with public speaking, and I'm assuming that because you're taking a beginning public speaking course, you may not have a lot of initial credibility when it comes to public speaking. You just haven't done it that much. There's nothing wrong with that. It's just a fact of life. And that you're still here at Chaffee means you're not done with your educational career. And that's great. You're in process. I'm proud of all of you I love people going to school. I think everybody should go to school, to be honest. Anyway, I won't get into that. So keep going to school, get that degree, and your credibility will go just by the fact that you have the degree. And then experience. If you've done years and years and years of water skiing, and you're doing a speech on water skiing, they're going to say, oh, he won a national championship or something like that, you're gonna have initial credibility by the fact that you have done that and achieved certain levels. But then there is also what is called derived credibility. And that is, if you're giving a good presentation, your meter is going up, 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 up. I'm charging a couple of batteries for my brand new electric drill that I just got. DeWalt, never tried one of those before. And it can go up, but it can also go down, right? So if you start out with great initial competence, or you have a degree, you have these experiences, but then you start doing a lousy job in your presentation, your credibility drops. So that can go up and down. And then finally, they talk about terminal credibility. That is where you end up. And you can start low, your speech, and build high based on your presentation and the content of your speech. But you can also start high and end low. So you want to, if anything, probably build over time. Don't start low, but start strong and then remain strong and even end on a high note. So credibility can change. So how can you establish credibility with your audience? Well, first of all, tell them directly. Now, this is one of my pet peeves in these speeches, is that so often people forget to establish their credibility at the beginning of their speech. So you're starting off with getting our attention, some attention grabber. Second, you're saying, so today I'm talking to you about German Shepherds. And then the third thing is, I want you to tell us something that establishes your credibility. Something like this. And I'm looking for this in all your speeches. I'm waiting there with my pen to check a 0 or a 5 on the scorecard, saying something like this. In order to prepare for this speech, I have done plenty of, and the word I'm looking for is research. Research, research, research. Put that word in there. That implies I've looked at books, articles, videos, all those, done interviews. All those things are kind of packed into that word. I've gathered information and I've done it. I've done a lot of it, and I've done it in a timely manner. So I have been able to incorporate it into my smooth presentation. So I am ready to go. So please establish your credibility. And the way I like to describe it is, if you wait too long in your speech to establish credibility, do it at the beginning, because it's like fish. Fish only lasts for 3 days, if that long? If you wait too long in your speech, they say that it bottoms out and it has no impact on the audience. It does not build credibility if you don't state your credibility right off the bat. So we're looking for that in the introduction. Not in your first point, not in your second point, not in your third point, not in your conclusion, in the introduction. That's where it's going to pay off the most for establishing credibility by telling us. Second of all, they say establish common ground with your audience, especially if in a persuasive speech where you know they disagree with you, that you maybe carry a minority position on the topic and you're trying to persuade them to agree with you. If you can establish some kind of common ground, maybe, for example, so we've all been students here at Chaffee College. Yeah, and so it does build a connection, and they're going to probably like you more and not like you less because of that common ground you share, and they will give you the benefit of the doubt more likely. So establish common ground with them. And then third of all is your presentation itself. By doing a quality presentation, we kind of, this is what's implied, but by doing a quality presentation, you will be establishing credibility. They may agree with you or not agree with you, but at least they'll say, well, he was so well prepared that I have to take his point of view seriously and reconsider my own point of view because he had such good evidence and quality of presentation. Okay, so that's number one, credibility. The second tool that you want to put in your toolbox is the use of evidence. Now, evidence, do you remember before in chapter 8 where we talked about examples, statistics, and testimony? Those were 3 examples of putting evidence into your excuse me, presentation. And evidence is there to not make the point, but to back up and support and strengthen the point you made. If you tell me, for example, that there are, I don't know how many, 15 different types of shepherds? I don't know how many there are. And then tell me what they are, and say, according to Bob Jones' big book on shepherds, and then tell me what Bob Jones said about it and the research that he did, that's going to help establish and provide evidence that backs up your point that there are 15 different types of shepherds. So you're going to back up what you say with evidence. We want to talk now about expert credibility. And that is that you in yourself have been there, done that, know this, know that, have taught this, have experienced this. You bring, there are those people who have done those things. When you include their testimony or their background into your speech, that's what's called expert credibility, that they bring that to the speech. And so you want to make sure you include people, sources, comments that are expert in the field that you are presenting. The other thing you want is that you need to have a significant amount of evidence in your speech. And this takes the form of these in-text citations. According to John Smith, in his book, in his 2017 book, The Big Book of Shepherds, I'm making that up, he says this. That's what's called an in-text citation. And we've talked about this a bazillion times. Who said it, where they said it, when they said it, and what they said. And quite often people will leave out the date or where it's said. You want to give us all 4 of those. Let's see. Oh, and you're going to give us 5 of those in your informative speech. And we're going to crank it up to 6 in your persuasive speech. During your presentation, 5 in-text, inline citations during your speech. If you only have 1 or 2, you see how that's not enough evidence to make your point? But if you give us 5 or 6, that's going to make a strong point. So you want to have a significant amount of evidence in your speech. And the more that your audience disagrees with your point of view, probably the more evidence you want to give to back up what you say. Okay, then the textbook gives us 4 suggestions on how this is done. First of all, they say use specific evidence. Give us names, dates, places, who did it, what they said, and all that. Specific, identifiable, concrete, clear examples. So it's clear to the audience. Second, use novel evidence. Something that's out of the ordinary. Now, this is a little bit of a nuance in that we are relying on something new or different to catch their attention and hold it, rather than the same old information they might have heard somewhere in the past. But we want to give them something new to dazzle them. I hate to do that, but that's what they were doing. Something novel, something different that stands out of the ordinary that they might better remember, and it will be better evidence. Number 3 is credible sources. And I use the example of, we live, jet propulsion. When I was living at school in Pasadena, we were near JPL, and I lived in La Cañada, and JPL was just across the ravine of the river there in La Cañada. Devil's Gate Dam, is that what it was? But anyway, would you want somebody telling you who worked at JPL, and we knew some people who worked there, versus your next door neighbor? Like, in fact, we knew one guy who worked on the wiring system for the lunar rover, or was it I think the Mars rover. So that's pretty impressive for them to do that. But, or your next door neighbor who changed his fuses in his electrical panel. Which one's going to have a little bit more power to it in terms of credibility, right? So use significant types of sources as well. And then the 4th one they point out is make sure your audience understands the points you are making. If you're talking about something, make sure that you don't leave them wondering or unclear. Do you need to connect the dots between the source that you mentioned and how that impacts the topic of your speech or the point you're trying to support? How are you putting those two together? Draw them a line. Don't assume they get it. Do you need to clarify anything for them to understand? Okay, so this is now a 20-minute video. I'm going to shut this one off. I'm going to switch over and do another video. All right.